Long before the genesis of human myths or the emergence of our deities, there thrived a world that was both immensely ancient and remarkably complete. Yet, even then, its fate was sealed. 66 million years ago, the Earth teemed with vibrant life, exhaling a rich, full breath across its vast landscapes. Its verdant lungs were the dense, humid forests, where the very air was so thick and heavy it felt almost palpable to the touch. The planet's lifeblood flowed through warm, shallow seas, absolutely teeming with an astonishing diversity of aquatic life. And its powerful heart resonated with the slow, formidable rhythm of constantly active volcanoes. This was a world that had achieved a profound equilibrium, a state of savage perfection. It was, in essence, the final epoch of a primeval Eden. The ground beneath trembled, not from a seismic event, but from the rhythmic, thunderous advance of a living avalanche of muscle and bone. A colossal herd of triceratops moved through the valley, an unstoppable force of nature, akin to a geological phenomenon. Each individual creature was an impregnable fortress, crowned with 3 formidable horns and protected by an immense bony frill. They embodied the very essence of stubborn, untamed primordial might. With powerful movements, they tore down the branches of gigantic ferns, consuming them with voracious appetites. Their deep guttural bellows formed a language as ancient and resonant as the very hills surrounding them. These living bastions were the embodiment of unwavering confidence, fortresses of flesh that knew no fear in their domain. High above them, within the boundless expanse of the sky, a vast shadow glided silently. Quetzalcoatlus, a colossal pterosaur with a wingspan comparable to that of a small aircraft, soared effortlessly on the rising thermal currents. From its vantage point 1,000 feet above the ground, its keen, ancient eyes surveyed everything below with piercing clarity. It observed the glistening, serpentine rivers, the undulating green carpet of the jungle, and the moving mountains that were the Triceratops herd. Far beneath, the massive Triceratops herd continued its slow, deliberate march. Its piercing cry, a sharp and alien sound to all that crawled below, was a majestic anthem proclaiming its absolute dominion over the skies. It reigned supreme as the master of the heights, its gaze acknowledging nothing beyond the boundaries of its eternal aerial kingdom. However, above this earthly sky there existed another, far different firmament, black, frigid, and utterly boundless. And within that infinite void a messenger moved silently and inexorably, carrying not a message of tidings, but a definitive judgment. It was a fragment of rock, a colossal shard the size of a mountain, born from the chaotic epochs that Earth had never known. While millions of hearts beat below in the warmth and humidity of the planet, this harbinger of doom hurtled through absolute cold, crossing Mars' orbit, becoming a barely perceptible spark against the backdrop of eternal night. It was nothing more than an immense mass of stone, relentlessly propelled by the unyielding laws of gravity. Beneath the subtly rippling surface of the ocean, in a world of profound blue silence, absolute brutality held sway. A mosasaur, a living torpedo the length of a city bus, hung motionless in the deep expanse of the water. This was not a dinosaur, but a monstrous marine lizard, meticulously engineered for a singular, terrifying purpose: to kill. Sunlight from the surface danced and shimmered across its dark, scaly hide. Suddenly, its serpentine body tensed, coiled with immense power. With a single, explosive lunge, a prehistoric shark vanished into its jaws, which were lined with a double row of conical teeth, the crunch of bone muffled by the dense water. This was not merely a hunt. It was an execution, swift and merciless. Satiated, the colossal creature began its slow, deliberate ascent towards the surface. Its gigantic head broke through the water without a sound, and it drew a deep, resonant breath. Its cold, indifferent eyes surveyed the land, the world to which it inherently belonged, with a detached gaze. In that precise moment, the very air seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. An eerie silence descended, profound and absolute. The incessant buzzing of giant insects gradually faded into nothingness. Small flocks of diminutive dinosaurs froze instantly, transforming into statues sculpted from flesh and primal fear. From the deep shadows cast by the colossal sequoia trees he emerged, the undisputed lord whose very name would become synonymous with an entire era. Tyrannosaurus, a magnificent 12 meters of pure, unadulterated power. His head, the size of a human, was perfectly designed to crush and shatter bone with terrifying force. He was not actively hunting, he was already sated from a previous kill. He simply walked, and his mere presence altered the very fabric of the world around him. In a nearby clearing, a pair of smaller predators had already cornered a young ornithopod, separated from its herd, but as the tyrant's shadow fell upon them, they silently dissolved into the undergrowth, abandoning their prey. He was the ultimate arbiter of the natural balance. His prerogative extended beyond merely killing. He held the power to decide who would live and who would perish. Upon reaching the summit of a hill, he came to a majestic halt. His roar was not merely an auditory phenomenon. It was a physical force, a low-frequency wave that caused the very ground beneath their feet to vibrate. From the distant trees, birds erupted into panicked flight, their cries echoing through the forest. The wave of sound rolled across the forests, through the valleys, eventually reaching the coastline where the giant mosasaur, having just taken a breath, shuddered visibly at this overwhelming display of power emanating from the land. In that very instant, the entire planet, from the towering treetops to the water's edge, seemed to belong solely to him. He represented the pinnacle of evolution, meticulously forged over millions of years in a relentless arms race of survival. Yet, even as the king asserted his right to life with a continent-shaking roar, a stone from the void was gathering unimaginable speed, drawn by the gravitational pull of the very planet it was destined to destroy. Two kings, separated by an unfathomable abyss of space, hurtled inexorably towards a collision course. One, the ultimate embodiment of life, meticulously forged and refined through countless struggles for survival. A different absolute of nothingness, utterly cold and completely indifferent, was now asserting its presence. The terrestrial world had long been governed by the primal, brutal laws of fang and claw, a testament to its savage existence. However, an entirely new and devastating law was already hurtling towards it from the vast, silent expanse of the cosmos. This impending law was inscribed in the very essence of fire and cataclysmic impact. It represented a force so overwhelming that no living creature, regardless of its might, could possibly withstand its inexorable power. It was a world that had achieved a terrifying perfection in its inherent ferocity, a brutal Eden forged in ceaseless struggle. Unbeknownst to this ancient world, its ultimate judgment, its final sentence, was already in swift transit, traversing the profound and silent void of interstellar space. This decree was destined to arrive with catastrophic finality. Time itself, in its boundless flow, had yet to grasp that this particular morning would be its very last. For a world that had reached the zenith of its savage perfection, this day dawned just like the countless thousands that had preceded it. High upon his craggy perch, the Tyrannosaurus rex, the undisputed arbiter of the ecosystem's delicate balance, greeted the nascent dawn. He acknowledged his supreme dominion with a silent, primal understanding of his own formidable power. Below, in the sprawling valley, life unfolded according to ancient laws, etched into bone and sealed with blood. This was an illusion of eternity, a flawless and seemingly unbreakable cycle of existence. But then the very fabric of reality began to fray, threatening to unravel completely. The first sign was not a sound that could be heard. Instead, it was a profound premonition, deeply etched into the fundamental matter of the world itself. A deep subcutaneous hum, a tremor that reverberated through bones long before any ear could possibly detect its subtle vibration. On the colossal ferns, whose fronds remained perfectly still in the absolute absence of wind, the leaves began to tremble with an unnatural agitation. The surfaces of the lakes, usually placid, rippled with a fine, unnatural disturbance, moving against the natural current. It was as if the water itself was attempting to flee from some immense unseen pressure descending upon it from the heavens above. In the vast blue abyss of the ocean, the mosasaur perceived this impending doom as a sudden, intense compression. Its entire aquatic world, its familiar domain of water, suddenly felt denser, more constricted. The deep currents, which were as predictable and reliable as the tides themselves, suddenly went wild, swirling into chaotic, unpredictable vortices. Something invisible yet colossal was pressing down upon the ocean's surface. This immense pressure permeated even the darkest, most unfathomable depths of the marine realm. On land, the herds of triceratops were the first to react to this burgeoning crisis. A wave of profound panic surged through their immense geological mass. These living fortresses, creatures that had never known fear in the face of predatory fangs, suddenly felt utterly vulnerable. They instinctively huddled together, forming a tight, bristling circle, their formidable horns pointed outwards in a defensive array. Their powerful heads thrashed wildly, searching for a threat that possessed neither scent nor visible form. Their instincts, honed over eons for terrestrial battles, remained utterly silent in the face of an adversary that communicated through the very vibrations of the planet itself. High above them, the undisputed masters of the sky discovered that their aerial kingdom had betrayed them. The Quetzalcoatlus, who usually glided effortlessly along invisible thermal currents, suddenly plummeted into terrifying air pockets. The wind, their eternal and faithful servant, began to strike with an insane, unprecedented force. It carried with it a scent that simply should not have existed at such altitudes. An acrid, metallic odor of ozone, the unmistakable smell of rock incinerating at the very boundary between worlds. With cries that transformed from expressions of dominance to utter despair, these colossal sky-dwellers began to thrash about frantically. They desperately sought salvation on the very ground they had once so disdainfully overlooked. Unease, like a potent venom, spread inexorably across the entire planet. On another distant continent, the colossal herd of Argentinosaurus, whose migrations were a force capable of reshaping entire landscapes, came to an abrupt halt. Thousands upon thousands of tons of living flesh froze in place. The earth itself trembled beneath the weight of their collective, suppressed terror. Their incredibly long necks, resembling the masts of a doomed fleet, turned skyward towards a heaven that was visibly beginning to expire. The azure canopy above the world began to fade, losing its vibrant hue. It became a sickly, pale expanse, acquiring an unnatural greenish-yellow tint. It was as if a gigantic bruise was manifesting upon the very body of the planet, and at its ominous center the executioner made its appearance. Initially, it appeared as nothing more than a minor blemish, a slight imperfection in the otherwise pristine expanse of the sky. A single spark which neither flickered nor fell, defying all natural expectations. But then it began to grow. It expanded with an irresistible, almost sacrilegious speed, rapidly transforming from a mere ember into a colossal fireball. This was the ultimate judgment, carved into stone and hurtling through the vastness of eternity. As it plunged into the atmosphere, it donned a mantle of incandescent plasma, 1,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun itself. A blind judge, as cold and indifferent as the void from which it came, crowned itself with an unimaginable, scorching fire. A second, terrifying sun ignited in the heavens above. A new, overwhelming light descended upon the world. It was a deathly white, utterly merciless radiance. This light offered no warmth. Instead, it incinerated the very essence of light itself, consuming all that it touched. It merged with the golden glow of the old sun, and in that instant the world seemed to split asunder. Every tree, every stone, every dinosaur now cast two distinct shadows. One was the familiar, warm shadow of life, a comforting presence. The other was a stark, sharp, and profoundly blue-black shadow of oblivion, stretching ominously from the new, blazing fire in the sky. These two shadows wrestled for dominance upon the body of every living creature, and inexorably the shadow of death began to prevail. The Tyrannosaurus, still standing on his hill, remained fixed in place. His perfect senses, once so acute, were now completely overloaded and utterly broken by the unfolding chaos. The ground beneath him hummed with an incessant, agonizing vibration. The air was thick with the smell of superheated rock, and in the sky, eclipsing the very sun itself, blazed the fiery gaze of a god he had never known or acknowledged. In one terrifying second, 66 million years of painstaking evolution were condensed and obliterated in a single, blinding flash of light. The magnificent dominion of the giants, once thought to be unassailable and eternal, ultimately crumbled and met its catastrophic end. Yet this dramatic downfall, despite its immense devastation, did not signify the ultimate conclusion of the unfolding narrative or the cessation of all existence. Instead, it merely served as the initial spark, igniting the very first embers of what would soon erupt into an all-consuming and transformative conflagration.